You're listening to All Hands on Tech. Come along as we get to know the people and businesses behind the province's ever-expanding tech sector.
Each episode, we'll chat with local experts to uncover the hidden gems that make Nova Scotia a hub for collaboration, innovation, and creativity.
All Hands on Tech is proudly produced by Digital Nova Scotia, the industry association for Nova Scotia's growing tech sector. Hey, welcome back to another episode of All Hands on Tech. I'm Eilish.
And I'm kind of like Vince Vaughn, but from Temu, but people call me Greg. And today we've got another great episode coming your way with another Greg.
Another Greg. Created right here in Halifax, CloudKettle specializes in helping enterprises drive revenue by fully leveraging the Salesforce ecosystem. They provide strategic guidance and hands-on execution across a number of different platforms to create personalized cross-channel experiences that deliver results for their clients.
And as I'm sure many of our listeners likely know, if they've read the news, read it, heard about it through social media, it was all over the place. CloudKettle was recently acquired by Bell, a topic we'll absolutely be covering on this episode. So joining us now to get the conversation started is Greg Poirier, CloudKettle's founder and president. Thanks for joining us today.
Second Greg.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, listen, Greg, we like to get all of our episodes started with a couple of fairly easy icebreaker questions. We did not send them to you for approval. Are you okay with that?
I am okay with that.
Okay, let's get started here with the first question. What was your very first job, and did it teach you anything that you still carry through with you in your working life today?
Well, I had a lot of jobs growing up because we grew a lot of our own food, had pigs, chickens, and a lot of things that added household chores. But in terms of somebody else paying me, my first job was delivering phone books for Bell Canada. At that time, Maritime Tell and Tell. And they would drop a couple of pallets of phone books off at your house. You got a dot matrix printed list of homes and how many phones they had, and therefore how many phone books they were going to get. And you got, I can't remember how much, like maybe a nickel or a dime a phone book for each one you delivered.
Oh my gosh.
Full circle.
Full circle moment.
That's cool.
That's so neat. I love that. What are the odds? I love moments like that in life. That's really cool. Very cool. Okay, if you could instantly pick up a new hobby or skill and be incredible at it, what would it be and why?
I would like to go back to being good at being able to do development work. All those platforms and how code works in general has changed significantly since I used to dip my toe in it, and I don't have those skills anymore. So if I could do anything, I'd pick that skill back up.
It'd probably be like riding a bike, right? Like one of those things that once you kind of
not like that at all. No.
Yeah. A bike with 8 wheels and square wheels on the back or something. So if you could work from anywhere in the world for an entire month, where would you choose?
That's a good question. Probably Patagonia. I've been there before. It's amazing. And I would definitely do that again. It is beautiful. It's outdoors. You can, in the same day, go snowboarding, horseback riding, climb a volcano, bike. You can start in the winter at the top of a mountain and at the end of the day end in the summer swimming in a lake. So beautiful part of the world.
That's amazing.
Wow. Yeah, that is amazing.
Wow.
That's never an answer that I would have thought of. That's an incredible one.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. Okay, now that we've kind of gotten to know you a little bit as a person, let's get to know your company, CloudKettle. Let's start at the very beginning. It's been about a decade since you founded CloudKettle. What made you decide to want to branch out and do your own thing?
So, I mean, in terms of timing, I didn't have a lot of choice because the company I was working for at the time was running out of money. But I had known for a while I was going to do this, and I had somewhat of a rough business plan in my mind. And then, I was COO of a company that unfortunately wasn't doing very well, and in part had been brought in as COO to try to fix some of those problems. But, a lot of ships had sailed before my arrival. And as part of that transition, I knew I was going to do something like this as my next job. My hand was forced a little bit on the timing, but I just wanted to go do the thing that I enjoyed doing purely and avoid the things I didn't enjoy doing. So in many ways, CloudKettle is a distillation of what Greg loves and what Greg doesn't like, in the context of I really loved working in these complex technology platforms like Salesforce, and the Google ecosystem at the time. I didn't love helping raise money as part of a, founder in a company. I didn't love doing a lot of the stuff like that had to happen as part of working at startups. And this was an avenue to focus on that thing I did love, and not so much have to do that thing I didn't love anymore.
That's an incredible place to be in, to be able to just like pick and choose like that, what your role is going to be. I feel like a lot of folks never get that opportunity. So, I mean, congratulations, first of all. I mean, it's been a decade, but even just, on being able to position yourself to be in that state is an incredible accomplishment.
So the name CloudKettle, I'm a branding guy. I love everything from a logo to why someone uses particular words or particular naming, and CloudKettle itself is pretty unique. And I believe it comes from your love of tea. Can you explain that a little bit further?
I'm a good Cape Breton boy. So obviously there was a pot of tea on every single stove
Always,
where I grew up, and I still drink a lot of tea. But it was also a function of needing a name that was somewhat unique. So when the company was being started, I put together a series of words that we knew we wanted. So we were going to be a cloud company. We worked on cloud platforms, so we knew we wanted cloud in the name. And there was a couple of other things we tried, but cloud was the preferred one. And then there was a series of words like kettle, and built a little engine, and that engine went out and created every permutation and computation of those combinations of words possible, and then went and checked to make sure the .com and the Twitter handle and the Facebook handle and the LinkedIn handle and all those other associated items were available. Came back with a list of possible matches, and I think there was 3 that kind of worked. And I went to kind of my kitchen cabinet of advisors that I'd been working with for a long time at different companies and said, hey, which ones do you guys like best? And CloudKettle was the easy winner.
There we go.
It's really cool.
I like the kitchen cabinet reference. Like you were just all about an East Coast kitchen party.
It's woven throughout for sure.
All right, so we've learned a little bit more about you now. What about CloudKettle? We know that you guys specialize in the Salesforce ecosystem, but could you share a little bit more about what specific services that you offer to your clients? And then do any of those services actually kind of really stand out to you when it comes to demand from your clients?
So there's thousands of Salesforce partners in the world. I mean, Salesforce is the largest maker of B2B software in the world. I think they're top 60 largest companies, period, in the world. So there's a lot of Salesforce partners out there. We're one of thousands. Our niche and our specialty is that we focus on companies that are in highly regulated, high security, high compliance businesses. So we do a lot of work with financial services, healthcare, government, different organizations that have a lot of data that obviously needs to be confidential, but also might be the type of thing that bad actors would go after. So if we look at banks and telco and utilities, obviously there's always the risk of state-sponsored attacks from some unfriendly countries. If we look at other organizations, they might, because of the data they hold, be the type of organization that would be at risk from attack from hackers in terms of some monetary gain. And then there's just the obvious regulation stuff. So, hey, this organization has an obligation to ensure none of their data ever leaves the borders of Canada and the United States, or this organization has an obligation to ensure that they comply with Sarbanes-Oxley. And so those types of organizations are the ones we work with most of the time. And generally speaking, our clients are definitely on the enterprise side. So most are publicly traded or they're government, but they're at a size that is very, very large. Millions and millions and millions of records is generally the type of size of infrastructure and ecosystem we'd be working in.
Okay, interesting. It's funny, we just recently had an episode with a cybersecurity expert. So a lot of what you just said was like, it kind of resonated like, okay, I feel like I understand this a little bit better now. You mentioned just then that, a lot of your clients are that larger enterprise level. What sort of, kind of unique challenges do companies of that size sort of face? And how do you guys then ultimately tailor your services to meet those specific needs?
Yeah, so most of our clients have a very large Salesforce footprint. I mean, again, if you're a really big company, you essentially by default own a lot of Salesforce. And so those ecosystems are extremely complex, and the resources that are at a technical aptitude to maintain that type of ecosystem that is that big and complex are very, very rare globally. And so for a lot of them, they may have internally a team of 5, 10, 20, 30 people to help work on this infrastructure. But there's levels of complexity and parts of it that you'd never be able to hire people internally to do. And so that work tends to be done by outside experts like CloudKettle. So we're usually coming in and we're helping adapt and build out even more complexity to these ecosystems that already exist. In particular, adding niche areas that we might do for a client multiple times a year. So our clients tend to have repeatable specific problems. So how do we comply with Sarbanes-Oxley? How do we ensure legal compliance in the form of a deal desk and approvals and contracting? How do we ensure that this data is encrypted at rest, but also in transit? And so those types of problems we're solving all the time for clients, and we've built repeatable ways that you can do that. And we even understand a lot of the legal complexity that they're going through. Whereas if they try to do that work internally, it might be the only time in their career they ever have the opportunity to do that, which is kind of exciting, but also high risk if they get it wrong. So we're generally coming in to do those very, very niche things that would be unusual for them to do, but are also very necessary in terms of their compliance. So again, hey, we are a bank and we've purchased a smaller bank. We need to legally figure out a way to deal with all that bank's data and comply with it and email these customers in a way that falls within regulations for not only these 3 provinces where we're located, but these 2 US states where they're located. So it's a lot of very, very specialized niche work like that.
Interesting. I mean, it's obviously keeping you guys in business, doing well, even though it is such niche work. So it's a great little spot to be in, I would say.
And so, kind of going back into the sort of a brand positioning, you guys place a lot of emphasis on being a strategic advisor to your clients. People often say vendor or partner, but from that, strategic advisement, what does that look like in practice, especially when it comes to, you've mentioned some of these enterprise businesses have their unique processes and regulations that they have to deal with and their technology needs. So how does that look like from your way of engaging with these sort of large enterprises?
Yeah, so we're usually working with these companies initially at a C-suite level and then downward. So we're usually brought in by a CRO or CTO or CISO or CMO, and then they've identified a much broader problem, and then we're going and helping strategically on that problem. So again, there's the compliance issues that we've discussed. A lot of the time we're involved in mergers and acquisitions. So how are we combining or splitting these entities in terms of their customer databases? But generally speaking, we're getting brought in to solve big strategic problems, and that happens at a much higher level. Whereas another Salesforce partner might be brought in to, hey, we need to send out 20 emails and we just need somebody to do that. And yes, we may help a client with that, but that wouldn't be how we get brought in for an initial engagement. A lot of the time, the first engagement we have with a client is they will, as a new CMO, bring us in and they'll have us audit the entire Salesforce ecosystem. And that might take 6 weeks and hundreds of hours of CloudKettle team member time. And that would give them back, 100, 150 page document on this is everything you own. These are all the gaps we see. Here is 32 areas you're not complying with your own legal policies, like your online privacy policy, or here are ways that you're not adhering to this set of governance regulations. And here's how we recommend you fix these problems. And then generally speaking, they'll have us help them fix those problems on an ongoing basis. But usually it's at a very, very high strategic level. As one example, right now we're in August, September. Most of our publicly traded companies are very deep in their budget planning process for 2025. And I am spending currently a lot of my time with the CMOs and CTOs of those companies, helping them plan out what their 2025 budget is going to be in terms of how they're going to leverage this technology.
So even as founder and president, you're still down kind of in the nitty gritty of things, working away directly with your clients, hey?
Yeah, that's the fun stuff.
You got to keep it fun. You got to keep it fun. Okay, we here at Digital Nova Scotia obviously love to give a good shout out to some local impressive things that are happening, and exactly that is what you've done. CloudKettle was built right here in Nova Scotia. You say you're a Cape Breton boy, but in your 10 years of operation, you've expanded globally, and in the grand scheme of things, a decade really isn't all that, lengthy amount of time. So that's an impressive feat. But what do you think has actually led to that success of that expansion?
There was a lot of intentionality to that. So when I started the company, I'd written out a 10-year plan for the organization. And within that, I knew that we wanted to pursue really big enterprises with really complex Salesforce problems. And to do that, I knew we were going to have to sell and market ourselves in the US. There is a very finite number of large publicly traded companies in Canada. And they are spread across Canada. Yeah, there's a cluster in GTA, there's a cluster in Montreal. But realistically speaking, to effectively sell and market to that small number, you have to travel end to end 5 time zones. Alternatively, Texas, Florida, New York State, they are all country-sized GDPs in terms of addressable market. And obviously, if we look at where a lot of stock exchange action happens, we have a lot of publicly traded companies who have an epicenter in Manhattan. Additionally, if we look at California on its own is the 5th largest country in the world by GDP. Silicon Valley within that is probably 9th or 10th. I haven't looked it up recently. NVIDIA certainly has probably pumped that up. So I can walk around downtown San Francisco, or I can walk around downtown Manhattan and hit more publicly traded companies that would be in our total addressable market in a couple of hours than I could in 2 weeks of going across Canada. And so I knew that that was the direction we wanted to go in. And when I was starting the company, I spent most of my time and effort going to the US and trying to sell CloudKettle services there.
So do you find are you still traveling that, or are you established now to a level that you're happy with and you're okay? You're not doing that travel. I mean, I'm sure that maybe the one silver lining of the pandemic is that we've realized that we don't necessarily have to be physically in a space, connecting virtually like we are right now, maybe has opened some of those doors for you then?
Somewhat. Certainly my travel hopefully will never be as high as it was pre-COVID. At that point, I was probably in the US for 3 to 4 months a year.
Wow.
It's definitely down from there, but I'm still a very good friend of Marriott and Air Canada's. But also now what's probably had a bigger impact is that, we have a bigger team now. So I'm not the only one doing that work. So we have other partners here. Gail specializes in healthcare. Kaylee specializes in higher education and government, public sector. Dan specializes in a lot of B2B and retail stuff. So we've got a much broader team that can do that work now. And that's really what's contributing to me to traveling less. But I'll probably still be in hotels for somewhere between 40 and 60 nights this year.
Wow. Living out of a suitcase. Just really quick before we do get to the big question here. How many are on your team now?
We're 50.
Wow. Okay.
Wow,
Nice.
that's awesome.
Nice. Okay. Drum roll.
So the big question that everyone has wanted us to ask, and this is a great segue from you talking about your 10-year plan and expanding and knowing sort of what you need to do, is the acquisition. So back in July, you announced that Bell has acquired your company. What does this mean from a business standpoint and for your clients as well? What does this transition period look like?
Well, I mean, I think the easy answer to that is it doesn't mean much. And what I mean by that is when the company was started, it had a 10-year plan to get acquired by a large company, probably publicly traded. Certainly, Bell wasn't an obvious suitor on that list, but that was always the plan for the company. And as a result, the company was built to facilitate that. And what I mean by that is we did everything and built everything as if we were going to be acquired and be much larger than we were. So for a long time, we had an initiative internally called the Path to 100, which was every system that we purchased for the company, every process we put in place had to be good enough that it could support at least 100 or more employees. So in terms of infrastructure and HR and the underlying platforms that run the business, like your payroll, we already had all those systems in place that would normally get pushed onto a company when they get acquired. We had that in place. So interestingly, in terms of what an employee's day-to-day work looks like here and even how they get paid, not much has really changed. In terms of how our customers are serviced, it still is very similar because what we were acquired for was our unique way of doing that. Bell's goal is not to turn us into a Bell company that does Bell Salesforce work. We're already the ones who executed on Bell Salesforce work. That's how they knew us. Okay. We'd already been working on Bell Salesforce ecosystems for 5 or 6 years. What they want is an organization who can bring some of that feeling into Bell itself. So, it's I know it seems like a lazy answer, but not much is really changing here. Certainly, for obvious reasons, there's some clients we wouldn't be pursuing in the future that would be competitors of Bell's. But also what it does allow us to do is take a lot of that expertise we built building Bell's Salesforce ecosystem out and how you market and sell bundles of solutions to consumers, but also to businesses, and then going to the US and other markets and saying, okay, well, you have a similar need. You are doing the same thing here as a telco, and there's hundreds and hundreds of telcos in the US, not to mention the rest of the world, and being able to address those markets there. And taking that expertise we have in financial services that we've built in North America and exporting that to other places as well. So it's that ability to take what we know about the Canadian and US market and bundling that expertise and taking that to other areas.
I think it's a great answer too, because the one thing that really stuck out for me is when you talked about sort of pre-planning and that path to 100. So, I've been at marketing agencies before that would have started smaller and got acquired by, a larger agency with a presence sort of all across the country. Or, I've had, friends who've been involved with companies that have been acquired and then that company acquired, and things constantly change. And it is a shock to your system, everything down to HR and all those processes, like you mentioned. It's like jumping in the water at Crystal Crescent. It's something where it's, unpleasant, but, you can do it. It's just, it's not fun. And I think that from a pre-planning standpoint is so impressive because it's little things like that all compound together that make that experience as an employee be so much, more smooth in terms of, something gets announced like that. I'm sure there's, some anxiousness and, maybe some fearfulness when it comes to those acquisitions because there's a preconception of, things are going to change.
Absolutely. What's going to be on my plate now to allow for this transition to
That's really happen. Cool to hear that you guys have done some of that pre-planning to make it, just like, maybe there's some different standing meetings that happen here and there, but for the same time, it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are going to look the same as what they always have because we've been ready for this. So that's kudos to you guys for that.
Is that
I think another big part of that is because I knew the company was being built for this moment. We told every employee we hired that was the plan. And those employees who were with us for over 2 years also had stock options. So they knew they were going to benefit from a transaction when it occurred. So we baked that into the company when the company was founded. We knew that there was going to be a portion of the company that was allocated for employees. So 1/3 of the company was allocated for a stock option plan. And that was baked in at the outset. And every quarter, when we had our quarterly review, we presented to all the employees as if they were a board of a publicly traded company. So every employee, every quarter was getting an update on this is where our financials are, this is where we hit our goals, this is where we missed, these are the initiatives that worked, didn't work. These are the clients that we're succeeding with. These are the clients that we need to put some more effort into. And so, if you'd been here for 5 years, you would have been presented to 20 times, once a quarter, 4 times a year, times 5. You've been here for 5 years. You saw a presentation 20 times explaining to you that we are going to get acquired. These are the things that we have to achieve in order to do that. So there wasn't that cultural shock when it occurred, because that was the plan. I think there were some employees who were surprised, that, this happened today. I think there was certainly that, but there was no employee who really could have been like, oh my God, I didn't sign up for this. Like, this was always part of the plan and always repeatedly communicated.
Like,
and I think that
such
was
a rare
that
thing
transparency
today.
was really important.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what I was going to ask. Like, how did you know that this is exactly like you? I mean, it's a 10-year plan. It's been 10 years. This is like, it sounds from outsiders' point of view, it sounds like this happened exactly as you wanted it to. How do you even, I mean, I feel like a lot of people, when they start a business, it's like, let's just hope we can get a couple good years out of this. Let's hope maybe at some point it's not just a money pit. Like, it will, return on investment will actually happen here. For you, it sounds like that was never even an option. That was never on the books. It was, this is how it's going to happen, and it played out that way.
Well, I think certainly failure was an option. When I started the company, the agreement with my partner was, hey, Greg has worked at 3 successive startups, 2 failed, 1 was amazingly successful, and this starting his own company thing has definitely been in the cards for a while, but we're not going to, go bankrupt with our 2 new babies while we try to do this. So, the agreement was, this is the last run. And, I will get a straight job if I can't make this work. Because your partner, in my case, my wife, Erin, I mean, they make a lot of sacrifices when you work at a startup. And, I am on the road a lot, and I work some days 12, 14 hours, some days more. And so somebody else is on the other side of that equation making those sacrifices. So, we agreed upon a set amount. In our case, it was $5,000. And we said, we'll put $5,000 into this. If it doesn't happen, Greg will go back to having a real job that, is a little more stable and provides benefits. And, it was very likely that it wasn't going to work, but I was fortunate that I was able to drum up enough business to keep it going, and eventually was able to hire the first employee and the second one. I wouldn't say it was obvious this was going to be a success from the outset, but for me, what was obvious was, if it does take off, this is what the plan will be.
Incredible.
That's awesome, and kudos to you for giving a shout out to your partner as well.
Yeah.
That is the side of owning a business and growing something that is often not talked about, and especially with young kids as well. So that's amazing.
Yeah. Congratulations to the whole family, because like you say, at that point, it is the whole family who is backing this business. And what a final shot to take. Hey, like this was the last go for you, and here we are 10 years later and acquired. Yeah. Incredible. Okay, we want to give you another quick little shout out here too. You guys have received a 5 out of 5 rating on the Salesforce App Exchange, which is, again, another incredible feat here. What do you think sets CloudKettle apart from other companies that are operating in that same space? And what is your approach to maintaining such high client satisfaction?
So, I mean, that's about a 3-hour podcast on culture to make that happen. I think there's some examples of what helps facilitate that. So one is, again, when I started the company, and I know I sound like a psychopath that I had this really long document when I started the company, but I did, and
no,
it
you
had
were
been
prepared.
It was the result of all the things I'd seen gone wrong elsewhere or didn't like about other agencies and other consultancies that I had worked with. So a lot of CloudKettle was this has been my experience, it should be better. And one of those was the hourly billing. So I knew we wanted to do what's called value-based billing, which is We're not going to send you an invoice at the end of the month that's going to make you really unhappy because you're going to start to question why did it take 15 minutes to do this and an hour and a half to do this, etc. And anybody who's worked in a law firm or an accounting practice or a consultancy or an agency is very familiar with how unhappy that makes clients. So most of our engagements are value based, and it's a flat fee model. You have an annual retainer with us. We agree at the start of the year how much that is going to cost per month, and you get an invoice at the end of every month, and it says one line, and it's CloudKettle provides Salesforce services, $40,000 a month, and you just get that invoice, and you don't have to worry about that. And the give put of that is we've simplified your life with that billing, but in order to get somebody to sign that for 12 months at $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, $70,000, $90,000 a month, that is a really big commit and a lot of trust. And the level of service you have to provide them in order to make them sign that the second time is stratospheric. And so everything about the culture of the company in one way or another is built to ensure that gets signed every single year. And our attrit rate on clients is insanely low. Generally, it only happens when they are either going out of business or they've been acquired by somebody else. But you have to be able to provide that level of service to bill the way that we bill.
Wow.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I know, we're getting close to the end of our time here, so I want to be conscious of that. So what we'll do is we'll open up the floor to you. If there's anything else you want to share, if it's, I know you have a ton of good news that has come out lately, but whether it's a piece of advice, whether it's, something that you'd just love to mention or shout out to anyone or anything in particular, floor's yours. We'd love to leave it with something from you.
No, I don't think I have any magical words of wisdom. I think the important thing is, for obvious reasons, I've had a lot of interviews as of late, and a lot of them are focused on, well, how did you start the company and what was your plan, et cetera. And, that's flattering and maybe not unimportant in the context of growing and facilitating other entrepreneurs within Nova Scotia. But I think kind of the bigger picture thing is there is 50 other people here making that machine hum. And they put in a lot of work, and a lot of people have contributed. There's employees who've been here for 5, 6, 7 years who helped build this whole thing. And, it's great. They had stock options. They benefited from this transaction, but it's not a one person show. There is a multiple orbits of people who helped make this occur, which I think is really important to understand if indeed you're starting a business.
That's excellent.
Successful and humble.
Yeah.
A combination that doesn't always happen.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Well, from one Greg to another, just want to thank you for your time. And it was really great learning about your success story, but also just about how you guys started. And hopefully we'll hear more soon about what lies ahead. And we'll just continue to root for your guys' continued success.
Yeah. We appreciate the time, Greg.
Okay. Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
You too.
Right, thanks.
Recorded by This Is Marketing, unblanding branding since 2015.